Hi, Shakil. Um, please ask any questions that you have, and anybody else who had just started. So I think that'll take a few moments. Guys, I'm going to start a little bit, just talking a little bit about what we're going to go through today. There's people joining slowly, but we'll have more later, I'm sure. We are going to talk today about post-study work visas, studying abroad, and what the recruitment process is like, what your potential earnings are like. We'll talk about what it's like during your study and after your studies, and how many hours you can work while you're studying, and then how many, what sort of opportunities you have after as well. So that's the topic of today. We can go over some ROI stuff as well, and talk about return on investment. So how much your fees might cost for 1 year or 2 years, depending on your study program, how long it will take for you to complete that course, what your accommodation costs and your living expenses would be, and then potentially how much money you make back when you start your job. So all of that is quite relevant, and will of course be quite useful to you when you're trying to work out what your feasibility is like in terms of your budget and what you're expecting to gain out of studying abroad. So if you are expecting to gain something of the like you want to make some money and come back, or if you want to move out abroad permanently, apply for citizenship or permanent right to remain, then we work out the ROI on that respect. If you just want to earn some money for a couple of years and then come back, then we'll work out what your return on investment is that way as well. So hello, Abe, and hello, another Abe, Matthew, a different one. Okay, so fire away with any questions. As you can see above, I've asked if you want to ask about work visas, potential earnings, opportunities, the recruitment process abroad, and more. I'm more than happy to answer. Abe says study in Canada. What is it about study in Canada that you would like to ask? If you want to clarify that question. Okay, no clarification. So, okay, what is your question, Abe? What would you like to ask? Yeah, we can talk about tier 2 sponsorship process in the UK as well. What we will, so shall I start with, I'll start with that. I'll start with the UK. While I don't have any questions, I'll start with the UK and start in a more generic manner. So as far as the UK is concerned, and we've been through this on different webinars and bits and pieces, but we'll go through it again for the benefit of everyone. In the UK, you can apply for, when you you can actually have dependents coming on a visa with you. So if you have a family, a young family, a spouse, your child or your partner can come along with you. Your spouse actually is entitled to work full time, self-employed or employed, in whatever their field is. They're not allowed to work as a doctor or a dentist. So except for a doctor or a dentist, your spouse can work full time in whatever job they can get or whatever occupation is they're qualified in. As far as tier 2 sponsorship is concerned, that would be at the end of, you would be looking to get that at the end of your post-study work permit, as in what you're allowed to stay back for after you complete your studies. So in the UK, anybody graduating after after summer 2021 will have a 2-year post-study work permit. That means you can stay back for 2 years. At the end of that 2-year period, you would want the job, your employer, to have to be able to give a tier 2 work sponsorship to you. As long as they can, you can then extend your stay back period for more than 2 years, and your company would sponsor you thereafter. Once you've been in the country for more than 4 years, you can apply for a permanent right to remain, and then a year after that, you can apply for citizenship. You apply for citizenship by applying for by sitting an exam. It's called Living in the UK, sort of, I think that's the title, exam, and you have to know a fair amount of general knowledge about England and life in England and life in the UK, and then right. Oh, and you've asked, and if you can assist with it. Yeah, we do. So we help you find companies over here. So from what we do over here in terms of our placement office in London, we assist you in getting targeting the right companies, the companies that have the sponsorship license, that can then give you a tier 2 sponsorship after your sort of statutory work permit comes to a close after 2 years of you graduating. We will help you with the recruitment process. It's a very good question, Danishka. I'm going to go through the recruitment process slightly later. The recruitment process is very different here to what you would expect it to be or what you're used to in India. So how we will help you with that is also very important. It's also very important for you to learn the recruitment process so you can understand how that benefits you. Okay. Okay. So Anushka asks, I'll be completing my graduation next year and want to do a diploma or other degree in management in London. Tell me the options. Okay, so good generic question, I guess. What you want to do is, well, I mean, a diploma, the UK doesn't really have diplomas as per se too much. Mainly it's a master's, but the master's in the UK is 1 year. So your best option would be to do a master's if you're completing your graduation from India next year. There's lots of management programs in London. There's a Russell Group universities, there's a University of London universities, you can check those out. There's lots of courses. Obviously at master's level, there's more diversification, more specialism you can sort of opt in for when you choose your study program. So what you want to do is have a kind of area of management that you prefer, and then do it that way. So what you would do is maybe decide that you want management, marketing management, or stats, or something of that sort, or production management, or product design, or whatever it is in your field of management that you want to learn, and then find that program that suits what you see for your future. Obviously, in masters, it is a higher level of study. It's a higher degree of specialization. So you want to know roughly what direction your career may be pointing in, so that you can choose the right program. Okay, so okay, I hope that answers your question. Next year, I mean, what you want to do really is start trying to shortlist universities. It's never too early to start. This is what we say to people. It's never too early to start. So in that respect, what you really want to do is have start your shortlisting, get somebody to, what you want to do is have someone shortlist universities for you, go through some options with you, go through some degree programs with you, and then slowly but surely decide and hone down what it is that you want to do. Because obviously, remember, it's a big investment. It's not only an investment in your time, energy, money, it's also an investment in your future. So you at least want to make sure you're pointing in the right direction before you shoot. So, okay, we'll be more than happy to help you and talk about sort of what it is that you want to achieve out of your future, what it is that you want to do in your career, and then back analyze what course you should do in order to make sure that you can achieve those aims of yours. Can we start with London with the London 1 year LLM? So all LLMs are 1 year anyway in the whole of the UK. They are. It's not necessarily. We don't necessarily have to focus on an LLM. We can talk about in general master's programs if you want to talk about study, staying, ROI, earning, part-time. And then the only way where we differentiate from this course as opposed to an LLM, as opposed to maybe an MSc or otherwise a different master's, is your ability to, and what your post-study work options are in terms of your career. So that would be different. As far as studying is concerned, it's a 1 year master's. Doesn't matter if it's an LLM, if it's a master's in arts or fashion or whatever it might be. What you would have to do in terms of your fees in the UK on an average is about £15,000 or 13 to 15,000 pounds, which is essentially 12 to 14 lakh rupees. So that's what your tuition fees are. Then your accommodation costs can vary quite significantly. So if you are based in London, your tuition fees would be your tuition fees would be the same, but your accommodation costs can be 3 times as high as they are if they're outside. So I have a little chart here. I can't really share it with you guys because this is on Facebook Live. But let's just talk about the living expenses. So your living expenses in central London or London might be sort of between £3,500 and £4,000 a year, which is about 3.5 to 4 lakh a year. Outside cities can be as little as sort of 2.5 to 3 lakh per year. And obviously in London, when I say sort of around about the 4 lakh region, I'm talking about very minimum. It can be more depending on what your spending habits are and the way what kind of standard of living you choose. In terms of accommodation, the accommodation makes a big difference. Whereas the living expense isn't that much more or less, the accommodation makes a big difference. So the accommodation can vary from somewhere like about £5,000 a year, which is around about 4.5 lakh a year, to somewhere like £12,000 a year, which is something around about the region of about 11 lakh a year. So there can be a large varying degree of how much sort of it can cost. But as far as the tuition fees are concerned, the average is around about 12 to 14 lakh, which would stay standard everywhere, really. And depending on the level of university, obviously the better universities charge a bit more. But then again, if you get into a decent university and you get a scholarship, then you get a discount that way as well. So we do specialize in getting scholarships or preparing scholarship applications for people. The way we do that is by making sure that your application is very, very strong. Obviously, in the UK, your tuition fees are quite low anyway. So the scholarships aren't like studying in the US, where your scholarships may be somewhere, in and around a percentage, a strong percentage, like 30, 40% or something, up to that amount. It can be more common in the US. In the UK, it's usually a standard amount off of your fees, like maybe £2,000, £3,000, something like that. If you do get a percentage, it's usually it's a different kind of a scholarship, and we have got people with 100% scholarships that we've sent to the UK as well, and they don't pay any fees. Obviously, 100% tuition fee scholarship is that thing exactly. Your ROIs. So if you consider that your master's is only 1 year, so your tuition fee is only 1 year. If your tuition fee is 1 year and your total expenditure of your course or your total costs, for example, maybe let's say in and around the region of 20 to 30 lakh, right? Depending on whether you're in London or outside of London, depending on your accommodation, minimum 20 lakh with your tuition fees. You want to say about 20, 21 lakhs with your tuition fee included and your living expense and your tuition fee to about 35 lakhs. So it varies, obviously. But let's say that's your expenditure. Let's say as an average, we take 25 lakh if you're focusing on keeping your expenses down. You can earn around about part-time, you can do 20 hours a week. Average sort of salary while you're working part-time is about £10 an hour. So if you're doing about £200 a week, you can do about £800 a month. £800 a month is around about 75,000 rupees. If you do that for the 9 months that you're in term time, let's say, then we're talking about sort of £7,200 that year. You don't pay any tax on it because that's below the threshold of £10,000 a year. So you can assume that that's chipping in towards your expenditure. So if you remove 7 lakh from around about 25 lakh, you're left with 18. And then it's a matter of what is your earning in your 2 years that you have post study to work in the UK. So let's say you have a basic starting salary for a master's graduate is around about £30,000 at the very minimum, and somewhere between 30 to 40,000. So you want to maybe take an average of about 33,000, 35,000, and then work that way. So if that's what you're going to get in your first year, after your first year, remember you've only got a debt of 18 lakh. So that's about 30 lakh that you'll be earning. Considering that your accommodation might cost, 5,000 or 5,000 to 6,000 for the year. Remove that from the 30 lakh, and you're at about, you're at about 25. You had your 18 left from that year, so you're in 7 lakh profit in the first year, and then in the second year you got another 20. So you probably end up with a profit of about 20 to 25 to 30 lakh after your 2 years of work. At the very minimum, that's at the minimum stage. Otherwise, you can end up with a lot more, of course. I hope that makes sense a little bit, that calculation. It would make a lot more sense if there was a PPT for you guys to sort of see visually. But we can arrange that for you in a Zoom webinar if you want. Satyam asks, I've got a conditional offer letter from the University of Glasgow, but it is very costly. Is it worth investing so much amount in Glasgow? It's a very good question. I would ask why you've asked that question. Why do you think it's not worth spending that money in Glasgow? Glasgow is still a part of the UK. It's the second biggest city in Scotland after Edinburgh. The University of Glasgow is a decent university. What is it that you think you'd be investing in highly in Glasgow that you think might not be worth it? Because what we want to do is really sort of make sure that you understand what it is that what it is that you're getting. So your fees, your tuition fees in Glasgow would be the same as it would be in another university, maybe in a different location to the let's say in London, you'd still be paying the same amount. So let's say, but your living costs in Glasgow will be a lot less. So like I was explaining a bit earlier, your living costs would be somewhere, let's say in and around the region of, your accommodation would be about £5,000 to £6,000. So that's, almost half as much as it could be in London. Your living expense would be a bit less as well, because Scotland is cheaper in general. Going out, food is cheaper than it is in London. So by the time you do that, for Scotland, I've worked out that your total expenditure, including your tuition fees, if your tuition fees were £14,000, would be roughly 22 lakh rupees. So that's that really. So is it worth investing that much in Glasgow? Of course, because your 2-year post-study work visa, you can work anywhere in the UK. So you could do your studies in Glasgow and then come down to London to look for employment. So that's perfect. Whereas your living expenditure and your costs were lower while you were in Scotland, you've now got the opportunity to find a job in the whole of anywhere in the UK you want. So you might go Manchester, you might go to London, you might go somewhere else. So is it worth investing? 100%. If anything, it's cheaper. So it helps you on your ROI studying outside of London. But then you can work inside of London. That's the most important thing that I think you might be alluding to the question. Let me know if that answers your question. Tanishka asks, I have talked to some company reps, and they have said that they are reluctant towards giving out a scholarship under current conditions, especially for entry-level jobs. What's the likelihood of getting a scholarship under the current circumstances? Well, look, I would always say to you, I always find anyway that in India, a lot of reps aren't experienced with what they're talking about. The vast majority, right? So first question, where is your rep? Is your rep from London? Has your rep ever been to London? Does your rep, have they ever represented any UK universities? What do they really know? Because if they're just a glorified sales agent, then their experience is not really worth anything. So you really ought to worry about, not worry, you really ought to think about who is it that's giving me my advice? Where am I taking it from? Now, under current conditions, I don't like that word. I don't like that statement. The reason I don't is because it's ambiguous. What current conditions are we talking about? Are we talking about Corona? Are we talking about, what are we talking about? If you mean Corona, it's so early for anybody to be saying, what employment opportunities a tier 2 company or companies with a sponsorship license not going to want to employ freshly graduated students because of Corona? No, because if anything that's suffering, it's the hospitality industry or part-time workers that are suffering from Corona rather than companies. Most of the companies have already furloughed their staff. So furlough is a UK system right now where the government pays 80% of the salary. So my employees in the UK, for example, some of them are furloughed. So it means that I'm not paying their salaries. The government is paying 80% of their salaries, if that makes sense to you. So let's say my staff over here is of 20 people. I've kept maybe 10 of them on employment working remotely, and 10 of them I've put on furlough. And furlough means that they're not doing any work, but they're getting paid 80% of their salary from the government. So now, if the current circumstances in your question means Brexit, then actually it's very handy, because many people aren't going to be able to employ people. Many people aren't going to be able to employ skilled workers from Ukraine or IT people from Poland or unskilled workers from Romania. All of that is going to be closed down in about a year's time. So we in the UK are going to need, number one, companies having a sponsorship license is going to go up. And number two, the restrictions on giving a sponsorship license will go much more down. It will become, we're already talking about implementing a HSMP, which is called the Highly Skilled Migrant Program, which means that your sponsorship license or sponsorship will be more on the basis of your points. And the points will be on the basis of your age, of course, and you're young, and your study level, and your experience, work experience. And because we'll be helping you get recruited for your 2 years after you finish your studies, you would have a master's degree. You'll be quite young. You'll have 2 years of onshore work experience as well. So you're talking about really good points. And then, of course, if you have those points, you're in a very good position to get a sponsorship. I hope that answers your question. It's all about where to focus your energies. If you start focusing your energies getting work experience in a field that's not related to what your sponsorship will be focused on later, or you're spending time in companies that can't give you a sponsorship license, and then at the end of your 2 years you're looking to the company to give you a sponsorship license and they don't have a license to give you a sponsorship, then it's a wasted effort. Whereas if you've spent 2 years building a rapport, getting very good in a company, doing well in a company that has the ability, that has the license to give a sponsorship, then you're really talking about focusing your energies in the right place. And so, yeah, we're one of the few people that is based in London that can help you from here with that recruitment process. Because remember, studying is the first part, your career and where you get your job is the second part of that, and the most important part. I mean, I wouldn't say it was the most important part, but it's like playing cricket without a batting side, or being a bowling side without the other side. It's half of the game. Half of the game is your studies. The other half is getting the job so that you can realize your career goals. If you focus, if you do all the right work, prepare the right applications, go for the right universities, study the right program, do all of that, but then you focus all your energies in terms of getting your job in the wrong place, and it doesn't pan out, then you haven't realized what you could have. So that's very important. Okay, that's great, but can you let us know about the offers that you have received from other esteemed institutions in the UK? I got a conditional offer from Leicester, Coventry, Swansea, Glasgow for masters in electrical and electronics. Which will be the best for the course mentioned above? Okay, I think Coventry is a good one because it's closer to London. So it's a bit, if you want to stay south of things, then Coventry is a good option. I would say perhaps Leicester is also good because it's culturally, there's a good Indian population in Leicester. So if you're a little bit more wanting to be in a multicultural place, which is more Indian based, then Leicester is also very good. Glasgow is, if you struggle with English, understanding accents, then you might struggle with Glasgow a lot. I know that a lot of Indian people do struggle somewhat with the Scottish accent. In Glasgow, they have a very thick accent. You're not going to find that a lot of Indian food or a lot of Indian people. It'll be less maybe culturally diverse as maybe Leicester, which is more Indian focused. But then Coventry is very good anyway because Coventry is closer to London. So if you want to stay that side of things, the south side of things, then Coventry would be a good option. All of the universities are good. I would say maybe stay away from Swansea University. I wouldn't recommend Swansea University in front of the other three, not only because it's not as good a university, but also because it's Wales, and Wales is, in my opinion, I'm born here. I've lived in the UK for over 30 years. My experience of Wales is they're a little bit less welcoming than the Scottish or the Irish. The Scottish are very welcoming people. You might struggle to understand them because the accent is very thick, but other than that, they're very welcoming. The Welsh are a little bit less welcoming, a bit more conservative. So, yeah, I would say go Leicester if you want to be a bit more in an Indian mix. Coventry, if you want to be a bit closer to Glasgow, is probably, out of these three, probably maybe just the best university by a little bit, not by much, because Coventry is also a very good university, and so is Leicester. So, okay. Obviously, they're not the best of the best, but they're very good. I'm going to leave that question, and it's a question more for Swith to deal with. For how many years I'll get the visa if I do masters in London, and if I'll be doing MBA? So what will the tuition fees and living expenses? Okay, so I answered that question a bit earlier, but I'll answer it again. So you get a 2-year post-study work permit for doing a master's and or doing a graduation. So remember, your master's is 1 year and your post-study work permit or visa is for 2 years. So you can stay for 3 years in total. 1 year for your master's, 1 year for your 2 years for your post-study work. There's even a trick, actually. There's even programs called there's industrial placement programs as well. So in certain degree programs, certain courses, where you can get 1 year master's, it's actually a 2-year course, 1 year of study and 1 year of placement. So sometimes it's a low paid placement or minimal pay or whatever. So it's not very highly paid, but at least you're making money, right? And it can be somewhere around about 15 to 20 lakh in that year. So that's 1 year, it's 1 year study, 1 year placement, and then you have 2 years after that for post-study as well. So you could be working for 3 years with 1 year of study, even though your program is 2 years, if that makes sense. So that's also an option. But let's see. I remember with an MBA, if you're using, a lot of Indian students think an MBA is just a master's in business. Over here, our master's in business is an MSc, right? And it's 1 year. And there's no restrictions on your amount of work experience. Remember, an MBA is different. An MBA over here is seen as an executive MBA. You need to have a good couple of years of study experience in order to get that. Management experience in a job. So let's say you've got 2 to 3 years of work experience after your bachelor's, and that work experience is in a company in a management role, then we can apply for an MBA for you. But if you're not, if you've worked for 1 or 2 years and you're in a less management role or whatever, or you're in your father's company or something like that, then we would suggest that you don't do you go more for an MSc and a master's in a particular field of study that you want to do, rather than go for an MBA. I hope that makes sense, but I'll talk about that in a bit more detail if you have any more questions. The difference between a master's in management and an MBA, which is more of an executive MBA. We can talk about that. That's something that people often focus on the wrong thing. You can get a much better university and a much better course if you do the master's in management, your MSc, instead of doing your MBA. Remember that. An MBA, unless you really are, quite experienced, you're not going to be looking at getting the best degrees or the best universities. Okay, Anushka wants to know about the scholarship on tuition fees. So, look, I often say this, and I think it's very important for people to realize a scholarship is dependent on the admission tutor's view of you, right? I hope that makes sense. So the admissions tutor will make a decision about you. That decision will be based on a couple of things. Well, it'll be based on one thing. That one thing is your application. So if your application is strong, then you give a good impression. But your application is not just your marks. So a university may award somebody with, let's say, 75% results, give them a scholarship, and not give a scholarship to somebody with 85%. You might say, oh, how come that happens? Because that doesn't usually happen in India. But the way it happens is because if that person with the 75% has a very well-written SOP, has a lot of extracurricular accolades, has a lot of really strong LORs from NGOs and other things. LORs are letters of recommendation, SOP is a statement of purpose, and they're very well written, then the admissions tutor gets a feel that this person isn't just good at academics, they're a very well-rounded person, they're good at sport, or they're good at community service, or they've done really good work experience or community activity or whatever it might be. And the SOP is very well written, i.e. the admissions tutor gets to see that this person has some aims and dreams and what they want to do with their course, why they picked that university, why they picked that particular course, what they want to do after that course. Bits and pieces, it's all tied in very well, then the admissions tutor will feel that this person has a lot of potential. And that's when those students get scholarships. If you think, oh, okay, I'm just going to get, I've got 85% and I've got a 7.5 in my IELTS, and let's just put any application in, that's not the way it works. That's not how people get scholarships. I hope that answers your question. So we have a leading panel of SOP editors that have helped a lot of our students. Some of our students have even got 100% scholarships into the UK, which is very difficult. And they were awarded at the British High Commission in Delhi by the British Council for the 100% scholarship that they achieved. And the reason is because we worked very hard on their applications with them to prepare something that an admissions tutor would say is scholarship worthy. So Rahul asks, when it comes to an MSc/MBA 1 year plus 1 year work placement program, how much assistance can I expect from the university regarding the job? Okay, well, if it's a 1 year study, if it's a 1 year plus 1 year work placement, so industrial placement, the university will, depending on the university as well, will help quite a lot, because they want you to get that placement. They've set it up, which is why they've got that program. But some universities are not so good at getting placement. Some will say, oh, we'll get the top half of the batch. So the guys that have done achieved over a certain percentage will get the job that they've lined up already with their tie-up with whatever company it is. Some of them will say, no, we only want to do it for the top 35%. Some will do it for almost everybody in the whole program, unless they get really bad marks. So it really depends on the university. We will discuss with you what the courses are and what the track record of the university offering that industrial placement program and masters with a combined 2-year program, what their university track record are. We can tell you from the people that have gone to that university through us last year or wherever it may be, or what the general university's reputation is in terms of their industrial placement programs. I hope that answers your question. How to get admission in Deccan University, Australia? It's simple. We make sure that we make a very strong SOP, try and work on your LORs and your NGO certificates. They help a lot. We tie them into the SOP and make you a very well-rounded candidate. Of course, your marks are already, we can't do anything to change your marks, but we can do everything possible to make sure that everything else alongside your marks really helps you get that dream admission. And obviously for you, that's Deccan University. We do a lot of admissions into Australia every year. So what I would suggest is we touch base. One of the team will get your details, Bernjeet, and if you want to put your number here, you can do, and contact you, or you could just download the app or just call us. And we'll be more than happy to provide you a shortlisting for Australia, and or start you on your process. If you've decided what program you want to study and you want to study in Deccan and that's it, then let's really focus on getting your application as strong as possible. Start working on your supporting documents, your cover letter, which is very important, your SOP, which is even more important, your LORs, and any NGO certificates. We work with a few NGOs in India, so we can help you get those certificates, and then we have to work that into the content of your SOP as well. What qualities needed to merit study in Canada? What qualities? Willpower. So the quality you want to have is just perseverance, just strength of character. Yes, you will need about a 6 in your IELTS. Some colleges can accept something just below a 6 in IELTS, like a 5.5, but it's very rare. 6 in IELTS is what you want to have at this stage, because the testing is a bit difficult. We do online coaching as well, and obviously you can't go to any coaching centers. So I would suggest that you take a free demo or request a free demo. And we have master faculty, which are British Council certified. They will give you a free half-an-hour session, see how your English coaching comes along. If you decide you like to continue with them, you can continue. If you don't want to, then you don't have to. But it's free anyway, so take advantage of it. Depends in Canada whether you're going to apply for colleges or whether you're going to apply for universities. It's very different. Universities are much harder to get into. The entry requirements are much stricter. Colleges, the entry requirements are lower. The programs are more can be shorter as well. So if the program is shorter, remember your expenses will be lesser as well. But at the same time, you want to realize that in Canada, your stay back duration depends on the duration of your study as well. So that you want to bear in mind. But we can discuss what kind of options are available and within your budget and your marks for Canada, because we need to know whether we want to target universities, which area of Canada you want to be in, because after you finish studying, you would want to be somewhere where there's growing opportunities in your given area, your career field. Roald asks, I got in unis like Cardiff Metro, Robert Gordon, whose QS ranking is around 800. And on the other hand, I got into Queen's Belfast for business analytics, MSc. So what would you suggest I go for? Unis like Cardiff Metro with affordable fees, or Queen's Belfast, which is a bit expensive? Second question is, what is the criteria of ranking by QS, and does it make any difference in my profile? That is a very good question. I like that question, and it's going to be very, very handy for anybody listening as to what kind of, everybody has those kind of options to weigh up. So Cardiff Metro won't be the best of universities, right? It's a metro. So metropolitan universities usually are not as good as the university. So Cardiff University is a good university, but Cardiff Metro is not as good a university. Leeds University is a very good university. Leeds Metropolitan is not. Or Manchester University is a good university. Manchester Metropolitan is an okay university, but it's not as good. Now, QS rankings. When people get stuck up on rankings, I often try and encourage people not to, right? Look, rankings are vast things. So QS is one company that does rankings. And QS is generally recognized in world rankings, but really, you don't really want to be looking at world rankings. You want to be looking at country rankings. And in the countries, the best two countries to study, or the best two countries to study from, I would say, are the UK and the USA, in terms of the quality of the universities that they have. When people talk about Ivy Leagues or Oxbridge, the best universities in the world, they are usually based in the UK or the US. And that's not to say that QS global rankings are bad, because the TU9 German universities and French Paris-based universities and other universities in the world, in Australia, in Canada, are very, very good universities as well. But remember, when you talk about your profile, remember the IITs, the IIMs of India are regarded as the best university in India. If you have that on your profile in India, you are, regarded as the top of the top. But in the QS world rankings, IITs, IIMs come at somewhere like around about in the 100 and something, or 200 and 300 and something. They're quite low. So it depends which IIT or IIM you're talking about, but they vary a lot, and they're quite very, very low down in the world rankings. So I prefer to look at country rankings. And then when you're looking at country rankings, you ought to look at the ranking system which that country uses more often. So in the UK, we use the Guardian, or we use the Times. Those are the two most popular university ranking systems, so the Guardian or the Times. much more popular than QS, I would say. So nobody really looks at QS over here. Then you have to realize that there's lots of matrix of measurement for those universities. Okay, so there will be ranking for the university. There will be a ranking for that course in the university. So you could look at the ranking of Queen's Belfast. Then you could look at the course of, let's say, business management at business management, so course ranking, right? On top of that, then every university has lots and lots of matrix. So there's a teaching ranking, the university facility ranking, the student happiness ranking, the postgraduate employment rate ranking, right? So many. So when they give you a total university ranking, they're ranking on everything: what your teaching ranking is, what your student happiness ranking is, what your what your postgraduate employment rankings are. All of that combined into one sort of an average. So it's so broad that I wouldn't really necessarily look at it as much. Look at various other publications and then maybe make an own average in your own mind. Queen's Belfast is a very good university. It's in Northern Ireland, so you get to benefit from being technically in the UK. So you get a 2-year post-study work permit, and you can come to London to work for that afterwards as well. So that's a very, very good option, I would say, Queen's Belfast. Also, the Irish are very friendly, and they're lovely people. Like I said, it's a little bit more friendly than Wales, even though Cardiff is probably the capital of Wales, and it's where people are going to be the most welcoming in Cardiff, as opposed to other bits of Wales. But I would say, yeah, Queen's is a brilliant option, and you get to benefit from coming to the UK and having a 2-year post-study work permit. So yes, I would say, if you're talking about the Queen's Belfast versus Cardiff Metro, there's a lot of difference. So I would say Queen's Belfast is better. I remember that you've got your 2 years to earn back some of that money, so it's not going to cost a lot more in fees, but your options afterwards, when you're a graduate of Queen's Belfast versus being a graduate of Cardiff Metro, it will make a difference. I hope that answers your question. Okay, so Tanishka says, okay, there may be some sort of a confusion, but remember, Brexit, coming back again, Brexit is very beneficial for those who think that, for those outside of Europe looking to get employment or staybacks in the UK, because we are going to be very short on our migrant labour workforce in the UK after Brexit. Brexit has already been voted on and decided, it's happened, but we are in a transition period. So by the end of 2020, beginning of 2021, we're going to need lots of skilled and unskilled people from somewhere. So because India is massively English speaking, that is always going to be a preference. So yeah, I hope that answers. Ashraf will ask, can we get 100% scholarship? I'm not the one that can decide that, but we can do our level best. We have achieved numerous 100% scholarships in the past. We can connect you with those students of ours. You can speak with them and see what how we did it, and see if you want to go for that. And we can obviously work very closely with you, very hard with you, and put in those applications, prepare those SOPs, the cover letters, the LORs, the NGO certificates, all of that. We work on it very, very well, very, very hard with you, make sure it's absolutely top notch, and then make it specific to each university, and then send them off. Of course, we will lobby the universities on your behalf from here, from our London office, but remember, it's the university that gives the scholarship in the end. We will also then, while we're applying, help you apply during in some title scholarships. So there's the Ratan Tata scholarship, there's the universities have particular title scholarships they give out themselves as well. So all we can do is really work with you to make sure we have the best application, and then make sure we get that application in all of the places we can possibly send it. And that's how we would do it. The rest is up to the admissions teacher, I guess. Raul asks, how do we get in touch with you once we are done with our masters so that you can assist us with our CVs and our profiles? Of course, you can. We're based in London, so we're based in Clapham, which is very close to Victoria, which is central London, and it's the same company. We're the same. It's Admissify UK, which is here. So if you have the app downloaded and you just tap a message, we'll be available all the time. But once you've gone through us, you'll have some details. You'll have the email address of our London office, and we will, of course, do your CV editing and all the rest, act as your referee and all the rest of it from here. So that leads on actually very well to talking about the recruitment process, how we help you here. So let me discuss how we do that. So a lot of CVs, so you may have heard of the word prose. Prose is the way in which you write something or communicate something. So the Indian prose, as far as it comes to CVs are concerned, is very different to what we have here and what we're used to here. So when I see an Indian person's CV, it always makes me smile or laugh or just think that, this is very different to what we're used to. So if I'm reading some CVs from people I'm used to in the UK, I'm a recruitment, I'm in HR of a company, and I look at a CV that's come from somebody who's Indian, who's used to writing a CV in that manner, I'll think, oh, do I really want to hire this person? Maybe they're not, maybe they haven't adopted the culture enough. Maybe it'll be a bit difficult, whatever it might be. Whereas because it doesn't matter what your name is, there's many Indians in top-notch positions in the UK anyway. Our Chancellor, which is the second most important person after the Prime Minister, is Rishi Sunak, who's an Indian. The Home Secretary is Priti Patel. The Secretary of State for Health is Alok Sharma. So look, the name doesn't make a difference, but your way of speaking, your way of communication, the way your CV is written, that makes a difference. So remember, we will help you make your CV in line with what is expected here. In addition, we will tell you where to apply and how to put your CVs, and we'll put your CVs in our recruitment circles as well. And then we'll tell you where to focus so you can get the jobs in the companies that can then sponsor you past your 2-year work visa. So if you want to stay after the 2 years, you have to make sure you're in the company that can award you a sponsorship as well. So we'll do all of that as well. Then when those companies call us, where you send your CVs to say, has Rahul worked, or Rahul Das, or whoever it is, worked with you, because we will give you an internship certificate as well, then we will say, yes, he's worked with us and we highly recommend him. And that will go a long way to getting your reference checks done, because without your reference checks being done, you can't get employment. So I hope that understands how important that process is and how important it is to have a company based here to do that stuff for you. It's imperative. It makes a difference between getting it and not getting it, really, which is all the difference in the end. Lithwin says, hi. Rajashri asks, now is Northumbria University in terms of employability? How is Northumbria University in terms of employability for the course MSc in International Business Management? Fairly good. Northumbria University is a decent university. They're doing much better over the last few years than they used to, say, 10 years ago. So they're growing. They're very fast growing and growing in reputability as well. An MSc in International Business Management is always going to be something fairly generic, but at the same time fairly recruitable as well. So I would say, yeah, your employability is decent. where it really depends on which companies you focus at and what field of work you would like to do. We can again help you get an unpaid internship over here, or even a paid internship first, and that will of course help you build up your CV so that you can get good employment and show that you have some experience to merit the job that you're applying for. So can you please suggest names of 3 to 4 universities which have high employability rate after masters in electrical and electronics engineering? Is that within the UK, Satyam? I think if it is, it's too generic a question to answer. Okay, I could give you 30 to 40 names, not 3 to 4. What 3 to 4 shall I say? Shall I just say University of London University? Shall I say Russell Group universities? The University of London University is about 7, 8 of them. Queen Mary, University College London, King's College, Goldsmiths, City University. There's too many. Those are University of London universities. They have very, very high employability rates. Then there's the Russell Group universities. There's 26 of them, and they have extremely high employability rate. So I would suggest that you look at the Russell Group universities, University of London Group universities, and otherwise look at the Times or the Guardian ranking tables, and then look for that employability ranking when you look. So that is what I would suggest. Remember, rankings are not absolute. Rankings are not absolute. Back in my day, there was a university called Heriot-Watt, who nobody would even dream of going to. Now Heriot-Watt is quite high in the rankings. Would I want to go to Heriot-Watt? Probably not. I wouldn't be the most keen on it. But if you look at the rankings, they're doing much better. But if we look at traditional reputation, then they might not be so good. So remember, there's always a balance. So I wouldn't say just go off of rankings. At the same time, I wouldn't say ignore rankings completely. But remember, I would say maybe come up with your own shortlist, or when we do your shortlist, then ask us questions about the universities, the merits of each university against each other, and we'll tell you, like I did slightly earlier when we were talking about Leicester, Coventry, Swansea, or I've forgotten the other university. And we were saying what the merits are of each of the particular universities, closer to London, or slightly away from, Glasgow it was. Closer to, what the living expenses will be, what the difference in cost will be, what the difference in the demographic of the people around you and the culture will be, how close, what the employment is like in that area for after studies or during studies. So I would say look at those universities, Russell Group and University of London universities. Again, of course, if your budget is quite limited, then you might not want to look at University of London universities because their fees will be a little bit more and your accommodation will be much more. Rahul Das, yes, I did, and I have MBA in Business Analytics, 1 year and 1 year work experience program from Cardiff Metro, and MSc Management, 1 year plus 1 year internship from Robert Gordon. What do you suggest, Cardiff Metro or Robert Gordon? I would suggest Cardiff Metro, then Robert Gordon. Cardiff University is a very good university, the best university in Wales. Cardiff Metro is still a decent university. Robert Gordon, no one really in the UK is going to have heard very much of Robert Gordon. So I would say Cardiff Metro is a better option. After my opinion of Wales, I'm having slightly second thoughts on CMU. Look, I've been to Wales many times. Don't let me put you off. Wales is not all bad. Welsh are not all bad. It's just slightly less welcoming than Scotland. In Scotland, they're a little bit more conservative, but Cardiff is not. Okay, Rahul. So, like I said earlier, that person was asking me, or whoever it was it you? Was asking me about Swansea. Swansea is a different part of Wales. It's much more. They're not used to seeing very many people outside of Swansea. But Cardiff is very multicultural. Cardiff, everybody's used to seeing all sort of people, Asians, Chinese, Black people, all sorts of other ethnic people. So Cardiff is fine, but yeah, otherwise not as welcoming. That's not to say that they're racist or anything like that. It's just to say there's a difference in attitude. I hope that clarifies. Don't be scared, particularly if you're thinking of Cardiff. My son has a GPA of 2.2. Sorry. So my son has a GPA of 2.2 right now, and he's in the third year of undergraduate studies doing a major in economics from Ashoka University. Has some management course with industrial internship. Does he qualify to apply for such course? If so, which university should we go for? It depends what course he wants to do, and we need to see. I don't know whether that's an online course or whatever. Not. Swed will deal with your inquiry specifically based on what type of program that was that he studied. I'm afraid that's a bit vague for me to answer, but we will definitely deal with your question and look at your son's profile and then advise in the best possible way. I am Anuprava Ghosh says, I am getting to know about a lot of news from universities in the UK that after September 2020 term, they will like study from your country. Is that likely to happen? Okay. In Canada, a few universities have done this, or colleges. They have said that you can study your first semester from India and then your second semester from Canada and still be able to benefit from all your post-study work permit expectations. So if you have a 2-year post-study work permit, you can still get that and study your first semester or whatever from India. So the UK, there's nothing yet that they're planning to do anything like that. But if there is, it will follow that kind of suit, right? So it will be, you'll still be a member of that university and everything. You'll still be attending the classes online as people are now, but you'll just be doing it from India. And then in the second semester, you'll come down. So if anything, the advantage is that you not wasting time in life by sitting around in lockdown in India, not doing anything. So that's the biggest advantage. Second biggest advantage is you've started your degree from the UK, from a good university. And third advantage is, and the biggest one, is that you get to benefit from as if you were there. So you still get your 2-year post-study work permit. And then the fourth and very also considerable advantage is that it's going to cost you less. If you're paying less for accommodation, you're paying less for living expenses, you're just sitting at home, then of course, other than your tuition fees, your living expenses and your accommodation expenses are halved. So that's good news, isn't it? That's the way you should see it. The non-shortage list doesn't include any job profile. Okay, that's good, Rahul. You know about that. So there is something called a shortage list at the moment for visa sponsorship. So our parent company over here, company I'm a director of, we're applying for a visa sponsorship license, but we can happily give those licenses, visa sponsorships, very easily to people within the shortage list. So the shortage list is healthcare, people in oil and gas, in IT that have a reasonable experience. So those are the kind of shortage, those are the occupations that are mentioned in the shortage list. However, remember that shortage list is a bit older. That is pre-Brexit. After Brexit, those things will be updated. And remember, those are visa sponsorship licenses and regulations brought in when we were part of the European Union. By the time you graduate, which will be 2021, we will have very different rules. We'll probably have a points-based system. We will still have those shortages, but we'll probably have more shortages because we're unable to get that kind of skilled labor from Europe. So, yeah. bear that in mind. It's a very, very good question, but you must bear in mind that those regulations are slightly older. Pre-Brexit, we will have post-Brexit sort of allowances for shortages. But yes, in general, an MBA or a general management degree is not going to be on a shortage list. So if that answers your question, no, that kind of generic thing won't be. But remember, if you do an MSc in public health management, that could be on the shortage list. So what I would suggest is that you be very careful about the course that you choose. And we will advise you on what courses we think will be very employable in terms of getting permanent residence in the UK as well. I hope that answers your question. So that's a very good point that I've raised there for you. It'll be very, very useful to you. But remember, it's what you know sometimes, which is very, very useful. So let us work with you on that. Sued has put some contact numbers for himself and for the company. Sued, if you can, put in, there's Delhi at Admissify and also sued.l at Admissify. So just we'll put a list of emails here as well for you to email. And if just in case you have any queries that I don't cover, we are in this session now for 1 hour and 6 minutes. I didn't want to go over an hour because every week we go to 1.5 hours. I don't want to go that long because I'm aware that people who listen to these afterwards will probably lose concentration. So it's important that we keep them clear and concise. We can cover some points next week. Rahul, this will be the last question that I'm going to answer, I think. Last 2 questions from Rahul. Rahul's asking very good questions. So Russell Group or non-Russell Group, can you explain us how it would impact us in terms of employability, not instead of research-based? Because I know Russell Group is good in terms of research. Okay, the Russell Group universities are, it's like an umbrella, right? So it's like saying, if I drink Coca-Cola, yeah, you're going to, or Pepsi, is there going to be much of a difference? I don't know, maybe that's not a good example, but Russell Group is 26 universities. They're very famous, they're very good for research, but they're also very good in general. They're very reputed universities. So it's not just research, they're very old and reputed universities. You know, like let's say Harriet, what university, that university I gave as an example, that wouldn't be in your Russell Group, even though it could do well in your rankings because it's not a very prestigious or old university. However, some University of London universities aren't in the Russell Group, and they're very, very good universities. So what I would suggest is that we don't say, oh, Russell Group versus non-Russell Group. We look at top universities as well as other universities. So top universities can be Russell Group or they can not be Russell Group. It doesn't mean if something is Russell Group, is not Russell Group, it's not a good university. You can have fantastic universities that are not Russell Group as well. So I hope that answers your question. Of course, Russell Group is a tag, it's a brand, it's known, but of course there are universities which are not Russell Group, which are very well known by British people and employers that will be very widely respected and regarded. And your last question was, no, that is my pleasure, Rahul. Your last question, I'm going to answer this question last before we go. It's 1 hour and 10 minutes now. What is the scope of business analytics, data science in terms of employability in the UK? That's a brilliant question. Rahul, you obviously know a good amount. So I really like speaking to informed people because you're already at the level of having a basic level of understanding, a decent level of understanding. Now you can tell the chalk from the cheese, because this kind of understanding, if you go to the best of the best consultancies in India, you will get the level of understanding you have here. But if you really want to go to the next level of understanding, i.e. being there and being British almost, then that's the Admissify level. All right, so I hope you can see that. But anyway, what is the scope of business analytics, data science? A lot of the industrial placement programs in the UK, where you're almost getting 100% guaranteed placement, paid, are these exact courses in data analytics, in data science. So these are, look, data analytics, data science is the field of the future in terms of IT. Okay, it's a data game. The UK has a shortage of these. I believe that this may even be on the shortage list later, right? Even though the UK is investing heavily in sort of educating our own citizens in this kind of field, but it is a highly employable field, highly paid area as well. So bear that in mind. You know, like I'm saying, some of the starting salaries and maybe something more like management or something can be like between £30,000 to £35,000. In data science, data analytics, it can be £10,000 more than that, easily as a starting. So bear that in mind. They're the best, I would say, for employability at the moment, at least in terms of engineering or IT. So, okay, or IT, in fact, because it's a specific field of IT as well. So considering that concludes our questions for today, I hope, Rahul, that answers your question. And thank you very much for being such a brilliant contributor to our session today. It has been a pleasure, as always, to join you from sunny London today. It's a brilliant weather. It's getting wonderful. I hope lockdown over there is treating you guys well. I thank you for your time. Join us next week on Saturday, where we're having this regular session. We will be discussing a different topic, not necessarily employment, but we can talk about maybe in more detail the recruitment process, and we'll talk about some other things as well. We'll talk about other things, but we'll release the topic for next week's session on our Facebook group and on our Facebook page by this evening or tomorrow. Okay, so all right, look, thank you very much, guys. Thank you for joining. I hope you found it informative, and we'll see you next week. In the meantime, please make sure you download the Admissify app. It's free. Ask any questions to Swed or post any questions on our group or on our page. You can chat with us directly on our Facebook page as well, and there'll be somebody to answer your question and allocate you to a country specialist or a country counsellor there as well. So, okay, thank you very much, and I'll see you next week. Thank you. Bye.